Hello and welcome to Diegetic Advancement. My name is Riley, and today I've got another random feat. Today I want to talk about some cosmology and like basic world building that I'm doing, which is probably procrastination from actually continuing work on the West Marches thing. But maybe it's just a nice break to kind of mix back and forth. The reason why I am doing this, though, is I got the Tome of World Building, the Nomicon, and the Tome of Adventure Design from the Mythmere Games' latest Kickstarter. Beautiful books, and I've been going through the world building one. And so that kind of has you start off by thinking about the cosmology and then getting into the places and cultures and things. And so kind of building on what I talked about in alignment and what was my now I can't remember my first episode. Was it Good and Evil? But yeah, alignment and good and evil and things like that. I just wanted to quickly go over the kind of rough sketch outline that I've got at the moment, and to then kind of build on that as I go further. And kind of talk about the process that I'm taking, or maybe I think the key thing is a kind of philosophy of design that I'm following. So the cosmos. So I've got a hierarchy. At the top are the cosmic forces, which I talked about. So you've got law, or in my case, order and chaos. I had been trying to find a word for the Eldritch Cthulhu stuff. I've settled on Nyx. And then I have entropy and fate. I'm not sure if I want to keep fate or not, but it's there. Entropy is interesting because I kind of talked about balance not being a cosmic force, but maybe like entropy kind of is that. Although it's kind of a return to nothing, which is not the balance of that I talk about, I guess. Under cosmic forces, I have primordial forces. I might have mentioned these in the other episode where I think I called them elemental. I've renamed them to primordial because it kind of means the same thing, but it doesn't invoke fire and earth and those elements. So in here, these need like significant fleshing out, but I've got things like titans and dragons and serpents, and these are kind of, well, as the name suggests, primordial forces. They're like the singular creature, or but like on a godlike scale. So maybe like for dragons, you could think of like Tiamat as being the primordial force here, the mother of monsters and things like that. The serpent being you kind of maybe like the serpent from Norse mythology, that kind of thing. Not all snakes, right? But I need to flesh these out and give them like something more beyond just Titan and Dragon. Maybe like an actual name for the dragon that is the primordial force. And add some others, but I'm kind of stumped at the moment. Under that, I have gods and demons. For this, the gods and demons are simply of this world. There might be other gods and other pantheons, but for the gods, and this is where we start to get into my kind of philosophy of design, which I'll come back to in a moment. But I just took the zodiac signs as my base, and I kind of thought about what they are, and then put a fantasy spin on them, and kind of like the typical D&D settings, kind of took up a mishmash of other mythologies and filled that out. So for Aries, I have Mitra, Taurus, Moloch, Cancer, Selene, Gemini, the twins, which is kind of inspired, at least in name, from the Malazan Book of the Fallen. I don't know if they'll actually, they probably will be fairly similar, I guess. Leo, I have Sekhmet. Scorpio, Set, because you can't have a sword and sorcery setting without Set. Sagittarius, Orion, Aquarius, Enki, Virgo, Cassandra, Libra, Mahat, Capricorn is Pan, Pisces, Deseto. And I've probably butchered a lot of those pronunciations. If you are a follower of any of these ancient faiths that I've stolen from, please forgive me. And I've given them some kind of, what's the correct word? Domains, right? Each of them have about 4 at this stage, 4 or 5. For the most part, they're what you'd expect from the zodiac sign or the god that they take their name from. And then I've kind of filled some gaps, right, where something might not quite fit. So that's the gods. I don't have... I haven't done demons yet. I'm going to probably steal some stuff from 40k, but I don't have a good kind of source baseline like I did for the gods. And then below god and demons, I have petty gods and godlings and potentially exceptionally powerful mortals. And I don't have any of these fleshed out, and I don't think I ever will. These are kind of the thing that I can draw on in a pinch if I need some sort of godlike entity outside the above-mentioned pantheon. The book also kind of recommends looking at the planes, because if you're playing D&D, you're going to end up going there and adventuring. So I kind of gave each of the hierarchy a plane of existence, and then each kind of being within that might have their own kind of separate realm, separate plane, but there's kind of groups of planes, I guess. And then I've kind of modeled that on a galaxy. So the entire world that I'm creating is contained to a single galaxy, and outside of that is nothingness, right? The edge of creation. That's where the cosmic forces are. Probably not somewhere that you can go and adventure. There's nothing there. Then I have all the dead worlds beyond the solar system where Earth is. I don't have a name for the planet, so it's Earth at the moment. So all the other systems outside of that are kind of the dead worlds, dying stars and things like that. This is where all the primordial forces are. There might be a primordial force in the solar system where the game takes place. I haven't thought that far ahead, but kind of that's where they all are. And most of the primordial forces are dead or dying or asleep, right? So that's why they're in these outer reaches. Then I have Elysium, which are the realm of the gods, and each of the gods have their own planet in the solar system, apart from Earth, right? And so maybe I need to add like a Maya god on top of that, and that's Earth. Then I have the Abyss, which is the realm of demons. At the moment, I'm thinking that's like the center of the galaxy. There's a black hole, and it's bringing in dead suns and whatnot, and that's where the demons realm is. You've got Earth, obviously. And then I needed somewhere for the petty gods and godlings, if they even have a realm, because some of these might just kind of be constrained to Earth. And I thought, okay, well, they can live on asteroids and shooting stars, comets, and things like that. So given all the planes are kind of a physical manifestation in the universe, whether that's at all important, I don't know. But at least for like when I'm thinking about heaven, these planets might come into view at certain months and kind of continue that zodiac theme. So it's things I can kind of draw on to establish festivals and things like that, or rituals and whatnot. So whether or not that's important, that's kind of how I've tied that in. And then lastly, I've started to go with cultures, and here again I'm just going to steal from like user base. And so I live in Australia, and so I thought, well, I'll create a culture for each Australian state, and these are not meant to be representative. Kind of one gives me a confined number, but I can just like take one key element of a state, and especially the capital city, and use that as its entire identity. So again, not being representative. But then I can also take places from those states and use them as places and things like that as well. So it's nice to have a real thing that I'm familiar with, right? So for example, Sydney, everyone knows the Sydney Harbour, so they are the Venetian merchant princes, right? My home state, South Australia, and Adelaide is the city of churches, so they are obviously some sort of theocracy. And I've gone on through that. You don't want to hear about all of them, but I've started to build those out, at least kind of get an idea of the source and relate them to a few random real world, ancient cultures, so that I can kind of draw on that. And the reason I think the cultures are important for two reasons. One, I'm not having dwarves and elves and halflings as playable races, at least from the start. There might be other non-human things that enter, but this is a sword and sorcery, human-centric game. And so, having some way to differentiate your characters still is important, so cultures there. And I'm also kind of trying to focus on characterization of the characters as well. So rather than just a fighter, making sure that they can tie themselves to a place and a culture. That's why I'm spending some time on religion and gods as well. Whereas I think before I might have even jotted down that I didn't really have gods, and I was maybe just going to do petty gods. But even though I don't have a cleric player class, you can play a cleric, right? You can play the holy warrior or the holy priest, and you play a magic user kind of thing. So, and most people are going to revere the gods or a god. So I think it is important to have that information loosely sketched out so players can pick it and then contribute to what those things are by playing in the world as well. And so just keeping it all loose. Finally, and this is almost certainly dragging on, but maybe some people will like that. I know one person will like the longer episodes. Finally, this kind of brings me to my philosophy of design and maybe to keep it in a Matt Finch-esque phrasing, given that this is mainly about the Tome of world building, or inspired by that. Well, this episode, what's to come isn't. Maybe it's an OSR Zen moment. And for me, it's that nothing about your adventure, your world, or game needs to be special. You can have a lot of fun playing D&D, fighting goblins in a cave. Right? It does not need to be original for it to be a fun game. There's room for creativity, 100%, and when you have creativity to spend or something inspires you, do that. That'll make your game special and yours. But otherwise, rob and steal. The best artists steal, right? So. And I think it's also very helpful to kind of base yourself on original things. So, and it kind of takes some of the intimidating factor of being a GM out of the equation, right? Just place some monsters down in a little sketch of a cave. It doesn't even need to be a good sketch. Bang out a point crawl kind of diagram. It's fine. Like, it doesn't matter. You'll have fun if you've got good players, because the players are, again, and especially in this style, the players are a driving force, and you just need to react to them and play your world. So, but the world doesn't need to be always some new and inventive, creative thing. So that is the poorly worded version of my Zen moment. Anyway, I've waffled on, so I'll leave it there. Bye for now.